Dear children, in the previous video, we have discussed about the pollination. And in this video, we can study how fertilization takes place in flowering plants. So as a result of pollination, the pollen grains fall on the stigma and gets attached on the stigma because of the sticky substance or sticky chemical substance present on the surface of the stigma. Now this is the pollen grains. Earlier also we have discussed that the structure of pollen grains. Pollen grains have an outer spiny membrane and in another membrane is there. Inside that it contains two nuclei. One is the generative nuclei and the another is the vegetative nuclei. So this is the male gamete. Now as a result of pollination, the pollen grains fall on the stigma. Now what happens? What is the structure of female reproductive system? That also we have discussed earlier. It contains a stigma. The stigma is followed by the style. The style is the structure which connects the stigma and the ovary. And at the base we can see the swollen part called the ovary. And inside the ovary, what is there? The ovule is there, and the ovule is covered by a structure called integument. Integument is protected by a structure called integument, and here at the basal part, here this portion, a small opening is there, which is called as the micropyle. Now, this ovule is otherwise called as the embryo sac. This embryo sac consists of numerous cells. This embryo sac consists of an egg apparatus which contains an egg cell associated with the two subsidiary cells or called as the synergids. So this is called as the egg cell. Egg cell or female gamete. And on either side they present two synergids. And at the center we can see a cell with two polar nuclei, or it is otherwise called as secondary cells. And another set of three cells are present at this portion, this end, which is called as the antipodal cells. You don't need to study in detail about all these cells, just I said it. So the embryo sac consists of these cells. The important thing is the egg cell or the female gamete. On the stigma there present a sugary substance or chemical substances which induce the growth of pollen tube, or the pollen grain starts germinating as a result of the action of these chemical substances present on the stigma. So these pollen grains start germinating, and these pollen grains grow towards the ovary. So as these pollen grains grow towards the ovary, what also moves? The male gamete and the vegetative cell. The male gamete and the vegetative cell also moves downwards along with the pollen tube. The male gamete also will be moving along the pollen tube. And when it reaches the micropyle, when the pollen tube reaches the micropyle, through which the pollen tube enters the ovule. Okay, so now the male gamete, a single male gamete now divides into two. The single male gamete now divides into two, and these two male gametes enters into the ovule. Two male gametes enters into the ovule. When it enters into the ovule, there present the egg cell. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg cell, and now What is formed? As a result of the fusion of female gamete and the male gamete, what is formed? Zygote is formed. Zygote is formed. Now, what happens to the another male gamete? Only one male gamete gets fused with the egg cell or egg nucleus. What happens to another male gamete? This male gamete also enters into the embryo sac and gets fuses with the polar egg. How many nuclei are there? Two polar nuclei are there, and now one male gamete or one nuclei also combines together or fuse together with this two nuclei. So how many fusion takes place there? Three fusion. The fusion of three nuclei takes place. This triplet cell will be developed into endosperm. So this is the primary endosperm, which provides the nutrition for the development of the zygote into embryo. So how many fusion takes place? Two fusion takes place. Here one male gamete fuses with the egg cell and combines together to form the zygote. And this fusion is called as syngamy. This fusion is called as syngamy. And another male gamete fuses with the two polar nuclei forming three nucleus. And there forms the primary endosperm. And this fusion is called as the triple fusion. Triple fusion. So two types of fusion takes place here. One is syngamy and another is the triple fusion. That is because of these two fusion or two types of fertilization takes place. The fertilization in plants is called as the flowering plants is called as the double fertilization. Double fertilization. So what is double fertilization? In angiosperms or in flowering plants, they produce, in the pollen grain there contains two male gametes. When it reaches the embryo sac, one of the male gamete fuses with the egg cell and forms a zygote, which is called as a syngamy, and another male gamete combines with the polar nuclei, which contains the two polar nuclei, and a triploid is formed, which is the primary endosperm, and that fusion is called as a triple fusion. So both these type of fusion takes place. So as a result, we call the fertilization of plants, flowering plants are called as a double fertilization. It is very important. So what happens after fertilization? Some changes takes place in the flower after fertilization, and these changes are called as a post-fertilization changes. Now what are these post-fertilization changes? After the fertilization, the petals will wilt off and fall off. The stigma and the style will wilt off. But sometimes the sepal will be there. And only the ovary portion will be remaining. And at first it is protected by the sepals. By this time, this zygote undergoes further division. The zygote undergoes further divisions and develops into several celled embryo. And this triplet or this primary endosperm cell formed as a result of this triple fusion will divide continuously and develops into an endosperm. And this endosperm provides the nutrition for the development of the zygote. So this zygote divides further and forms the embryo, which contains a plumule, a radicle and a cotyledon to store food for the further growth of this plumule and radicle during the germination of the seed. Okay, so this ovule will develop into seed, and this ovary, this is the ovary, the whole ovary will be developing into fruit. The integument present outside the ovule will be developing into, will be there as the seed coat, protective seed coat. Okay, and this ovary will be developing into fruit. See, you know different types of seeds. Gram seeds are there, Bengal gram seeds are there, Urad seeds are there, then rice, paddy seeds are there, wheat seeds are there. Have you ever noticed the cotyledons, green gram? When we soak it and if we remove the seed coat, green color seed coat, we can see two cotyledons. Okay. But in some seeds, there are present only one cotyledon. So, there are two types of seeds, dicotyledon seeds and monocotyledon seeds, produced in dicot plants and monocot plants. So, here we can see I have drawn the diagram of a green gram seed. So, this is the structure of the seed. The seed, have you ever noticed the white colored structure is there, and that is the micropyle through which the pollen tube enters and the fertilization takes place. So, the micropyle will be there in the seeds also, through which germination takes place. Now, this is the structure of a seed. The seed contains a seed coat. The seed is protected by a seed coat, or otherwise called as the testa. The seed coat is otherwise called as the testa. Inner to the seed coat, there are present two cotyledons. In some seeds, one cotyledon will be there, and some seeds, two cotyledons will be there. So, cotyledons, and these cotyledons provides the food or nourishment for the seeds while it is germinating. Now, here you can see the embryo. There is an embryo axis that contains two tips. One tip is called as the plumule, which develops into future shoot, and the other end is called as the radicle, which develops into future root. Here you can see the embryo, the plumule develops into shoot, and the radicle develops into root system. So, this is the structure of a seed. So, the seed is protected by a seed coat, it is called as testa, and inside the seed coat there are present cotyledons which provide the nutrition or nourishment for the embryo to germinate, and the embryo has an embryo axis which contains one tip which contains a plumule which develops into future shoot, and the radicle which develops into future root. Most of you know that when we kept the seed for soaking in water, so that seeds are now getting the favorable condition. They are getting water, moisture, sunlight, everything. Every favorable condition when they get, they start developing, or we say that these seeds start germinating. Okay, we can see small shoot system and a small root system arising from the seed. And finally, this seedling develops into a new plant. Okay, children, this is all about the reproduction in flowering, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now, let us recall the steps in the sexual reproduction of flowering plants. So, what all we have studied today? The flowers are the reproductive structures of a plant. The male reproductive structures are called as the stamens, and the stamens, inside the stamen, the male gametes are produced in the pollen grains. The female reproductive structures are called as the carpel or pistil, in which the ovule, which contains the egg cells or the female gamete, is present. As a result of pollination, the male gametes reaches the female gametes and the fertilization takes place. The important thing is the fertilization in flowering plants is called as double fertilization, because two fertilization takes place. One is syngamy and the other is the triple. The fertilized egg develops into the embryo, and the ovule develops into seed, and the whole ovary develops into the fruit, and later under favorable conditions the seed germinate or develops into a new young plant. This is all about the sexual reproduction in plants. Okay, all of you read the textbook properly and prepare the notes. All of you should draw the diagrams and label the part, especially the structure of the flower and the double fertilization. Okay children, thank you.